So, Pythagorean theorem. We're going to call it part 2. Okay, so we're also going to have our calculators handy so that we can do our squaring and square root later on. So here's the formula that we're going to be using. Formula is a squared plus b squared is equals to c squared. Now the a and the b, yesterday we said that the a and the b are the two short sides. The two short sides, the length of them. And then the c is the longest side. And yesterday we talked about the name for that longest side. What did we call the longest side yesterday? It starts with a H. Hypotenuse. Yeah, hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. Okay, so a squared plus b squared equals to c squared. What we're going to do is we're just going to do a few examples in here. Okay, hypotenuse. So let's create our right triangle in here. We're gonna, this is my 90-degree angle right there. Let's make this 10 and this is 8. So if this length is 10 and this length is 8, what are we solving for? We're solving for the c, which is the hypotenuse. Say it with me. What's that word?
Hypotenuse.
Hypotenuse. Yeah.
Hypotenuse.
Let's practice a word. Saying the word. Even to say the word is a great thing, right? Because if you can't say the word, then it's hard to communicate later on what we're looking for. So, hypotenuse. So these two, how do you know that this is the hypotenuse? How do we know that this is the hypotenuse?
Longest.
Yeah, across the 90 degrees. Right across the 90 degrees. So that tells us that's where the hypotenuse is. Now these two are the two short sides. We're going to call A and B. And it's okay for A and B to be switched around. Okay, so there's no problem if we call this A and then we call this B, or if we switch those two around, A and B. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our formula to figure out the C. Okay, so first write down the formula. A squared plus B squared equals to C squared. Okay, formula. What are we going to replace now? We're in the replacing with values. What do we replace the A by? 8. We're going to replace the A with 8. And it says 8 squared, so we're going to do that. It says plus. What do we replace the B by? 10. So we're going to put 10 squared equals. C, we have nothing to replace it with. There's no number to replace it with. And that's okay. That's what we're going to try to find out. So do you remember in our booklet before, we talked about orders of operation, right? Orders of operation, we said bed mass. We're going to do exponents first and then addition. Do you remember that piece? Okay. So what we could do, I'll just show you how you do that. So bed mass exponent first. 8 squared is, what's 8 squared? 8 squared, so try it on your calculator. 8 squared.
64.
64, yes, okay. Plus, what's 10 squared?
100.
100. So 10 squared means 10 times 10, which is 100, equals to c squared. What's the next thing we're going to do? Addition, right? 64 plus 100 is?
164.
164 equals to c squared. So from here, how can we calculate the c? How can we have the c on its own?
By square root.
This is our square. To get rid of the square, we have to put the square root. Okay, so I'm going to write here a little bubble to kind of remind ourselves. Okay, take the square root, which is this symbol, okay, to get rid of the square. The square, which is the exponent to there. Okay, so the squaring and the square root, they cancel each other out, so we're left with c. And now we're going to come up with the square root of 164. What kind of number did you get? So give it a try. What's the square root of 164? I'll do the same thing.
12 point.
Square root 164.
I got a 12.8.
You get 12.8?
80.
12.8. Okay, so this is our first example. We're going to do a few more until we, yeah, 12.8. Did everybody get 12.8?
Yeah, my God.
Yeah?
12.8.
Everybody got 12.8?
So
Good.
I should put it where first.
Let's do example number 2. See, just to make sure that we're getting this.
This is putting here.
Okay.
Putting here.
We're writing our notes down. Yeah, we're not. Okay, so I'm just gonna make some numbers over here. We're gonna call this 13. We're gonna call this 12. 13 and 12. So what are we solving for? Are we solving for the A, the B, or the C?
C?
C? And how do you know it's a C?
Because it's the longest.
Because it's the longest. And how do you know it's the longest?
Because it looks longer.
It looks longer. And it's right across the 90 degrees, right? The C is always right across from 90 degrees. So this, and there's a special name for C. What do you call that special name for C? Hypotenuse. And look how confident you are when you say hypotenuse. You're not just saying like, right? You say hypotenuse. Can you say hypotenuse? Oh, okay. Good, very nice. Hypotenuse. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna solve for C. A squared. What's the formula? Do you remember the formula now? A squared plus B squared equals to C squared. Okay.
A squared.
Now, we're gonna pick the A and then the B. So which one do you think we should do for A? Or does it matter? Doesn't matter, right? So, A is there, B is there. The C matters though. Okay. So now go ahead and replace some of these letters with the values. Go ahead and replace them with the values. Okay, so did you get 13 squared plus 12 squared plus equals C squared? Yes? What do you think is the first thing that we're going to do? We're going to figure out what's 13 squared. What's 13 squared? 13 squared means 13 times 13. So go ahead and figure out 13 squared.
I got 25.
13 squared is 169 plus
13 times 15.
13 times, yeah, or just 13 squared. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out what's 12 squared. 12 squared.
13 equals.
It's 144. Everybody got 144? Equals C squared. You know how like in math, we write vertically down. It's different from English, right?
Yeah.
English, we go from left to right. In math, we go down, vertically down. So we figured out 13 squared. We replaced that with 169. We figured out 12 squared, and we wrote down 144. What's the next step? The next step is to add those two numbers that you got. Okay, so go ahead and add those two numbers that you got. Okay, I'll do the same thing. 169 plus 144. I got 313 equals C squared. Okay. Now, we don't want 313 equals C squared. We want just a C, right? This one is C, not C squared. So how can we get rid of the square? We're going to take the square root to get rid of the square. Square root to get rid of the square.
It's 70.
Yeah. How's your calculator? Like you do it square root first and then 313. Okay, yeah, that's a good calculator. Yeah, same thing with that one. Okay, so yeah, you know different calculators do different things, right? So you have to get familiar with your calculator, figuring out where the buttons are, and so on. So, you know, once you have a good calculator, stick with it, and you get very, very familiar. So we got 17.69, so it will go 17.7 if we round it off to one decimal place.
70.9. It's a calculating.
Okay.
You
So,
have to use a calculator.
yeah, square root of
Oh, square root.
square root of 313.
313.
313.
Equals
Okay, we're gonna do one more. We're gonna do
17.
one more just to make sure that we get the home run here.
17.7.
You got it. Okay, let's do example number 3. Okay, so what are we trying to solve? A, B, or C?
C,
C, and how do you know we're solving for C?
because of the 90-degree angle.
Yeah, because this missing side is right across the 90-degree angle. You got it. Everybody agree? We're solving for C? Okay, good. So go ahead and write your formula down, the Pythagorean theorem formula.
Where's the reference? I'm not a fan of that reference. Because it's
Okay.
C is
So we got the A squared plus B squared equals to C squared.
2,500.
Oh, I'm not there yet, but yeah. We just gave out
minus 7,
almost the answer. That's okay. That's okay.
20.
okay. This is
The
C.
next step is to substitute, right? Replacing the value.
This
Get
times
there.
is 10.
Okay. The A, does it matter which one's A and B?
Minus 1.
No, it doesn't matter. Only the C matters, right? Because the C has to be the longest side. So we can call this A. We can call this B. Okay? Or you can go call this A, call this B, doesn't matter.
Okay, so here we have
So 40 squared plus 30 squared equals C squared. I have nothing to replace the C by, so we're just going to leave it as C. Okay, what's the first? Oh, not the first. The next step. Gotta do the orders of operation, right? So 40 squared. What's 40 squared? 40 squared means 40 times 40, or 40 squared. 40. Come on. 40 squared, I got 1,600.
106.
1600, right? 1,600.
It says 40 times 40.
Yeah. Or you can just go 40 squared. That's an easier way. 30 squared. What's 30 squared? What did you get?
Is that what you got? Yeah, nice.
900.
Okay.
Okay. So we did the exponents. Now we're gonna do the
Yeah.
addition.
It says I'm not you can get it. I always like doing it step by step. I like to see it.
Now it's gonna be 2,500, and this is where you were at. Okay.
Is that all?
It says 1600.
30 squared. Yeah. Make it
Just
easier.
answers.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm getting them, but I'm getting them.
Oh, yeah, you did it right. Okay, so this is not our final answer, right? We're trying to solve for c, not c squared. So how do you get rid of the squaring? Finally, to get rid of the squaring, we gotta take the square root. Okay, what's the square root of 2,500?
Hmm?
50?
What do I do from this?
50?
Oh, I just put that there.
50.
320.
So the answer is 50. So if this is 30 and then this is 40, then this side is called the hypotenuse is 50. 50 centimeters. Good. Do you do one? Do you want to see one more? Yeah, let's do one more. Here's one more. Actually, I'm going to use decimal this time. 2.5 and 1.5. So what are we solving in here? What are we solving here?
See?
We're solving for C. Notice we're always solving for. Oh yeah, we'll get to that one. That's a part. Oh, we're gonna do it step by step. Okay. Okay. Notice that we're always solving for the longest side. That's okay. We want to make sure that we're getting this strategy first. Okay. So we're solving for the C, and the name for that is called
Hypotenuse.
hypotenuse. Yeah.
Hypotenuse.
Okay. So A squared plus B squared equals to C squared. Okay. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace the A and the B. So we call this our A, we call this our B. Now I put a brackets there. I don't need to. Okay. So what's the first calculation that you're going to do? So our first calculation would be figuring out what 1.5 squared. So 1.5 squared . 2.25 . And then 2.5 squared. 6.25 equals C squared. So we figured out the 1.5 square, we wrote it down. We figured out the 2.5 square, we wrote it down. And then the next step is add them up.
And you'll have them for me class. Okay, yes, you want.
8.5 is equals to c squared. And then what do we do next?
Square root.
Square root. Finally, square root to get rid of that square. And we got an answer of 2.9. 2.9. Okay. So the booklet that you have, okay, I think some of you are already here, some of you are, even if you're not quite here yet, what we're gonna do is we're gonna try this one together in class. Circle the ones that I'm gonna assign to you, okay? So if you could turn to page 26, I will have to give you a vote there. So page 26.
Page 26.
Okay, so let's try the following. Question 5, question 6, question 7, question 8, question 9, and question 10. Okay, only those ones for now, because we're not quite ready with the other one yet. Okay, so we'll try these questions. Look for what we're solving in here. We want to get into the habit of writing the formula, substituting, right? Substituting means replacing the letters with the numbers, and then finally working it out to find out your answer. Okay, so it's a,
The numbers there.
okay, so that's basically it. Happy solving.